What's up YouTube, Webberz05 here, coming at you today with Q&A number 52. So once again, these questions are brought to you by my good friend DocRegician84, who before getting into his questions has a quick couple of comments beforehand. So thank you for congratulating me on 100 Q&A episodes, means a lot. Not a problem at all, my friend, that's a really good accomplishment for you, well done. Now I'm covering hated Xyz monsters, although I already may have asked you about 3 of them. Very well, let's get into these questions on Xyz monsters then. 1. Thoughts on number 80 Rhapsody in Berserk. I know you played it in your very first Pendulum deck, but I'm curious on your thoughts nowadays. So yeah, I still think Rhapsody in Berserk is a pretty decent Xyz monster. Twice, like a double detach to banish 2 cards from your opponent's grave. It's pretty decent. I mean, there's probably a lot easier methods of doing that now, rather than having to commit 2 level 4s just to do it. I probably just prefer doing something like DD Crow, because I prefer to at least just do something like DD Crow, which is just more fun. But still pretty useful, and then also its secondary effect of attaching itself to a monster to give it a 1200 buff. Never bad, but still, probably, kind of, I suppose it's just like power crap now, there's just better cards that can do what it does. But overall, I still think it's a pretty decent card. I mean, I don't feel it deserves to be on your hated card list, but considering what I did to you with it, I can understand that. For those who don't know what happened, I can quite clearly recall that match of why DocRegician hates it. It was a match I was in against a very early Pendulum deck, the first one I built. I believe it was against a version of his Neos, it might have been Neos Beatdown. So I banished one of his Neos with a Bottomless Trap Hole, and then once the other 2 were in the grave, I took both of them out with Rhapsody and Berserk and essentially rendered the deck useless, which probably explains why he hates the card. But hey, I did what I had to do to win. 2. Thoughts on number 89, Diablosis the Mind Hacker. So when it first came out, it was just like, cool, it's an extra deck rip with a additional effect that works around when cards are banished face down. Back then there weren't really too many things that did that, so wasn't really a huge big deal. It only kind of really became a problem once Kashtira became a thing. Which does make me question if Konami actually came up with Kashtira to simply have something that can synergize more with Diablosis the Mind Hacker, because considering it's a rank 7 psychic and all of Kashtira are level 7 psychics, kind of makes you feel like they were working in cahoots with each other when they did it. But yeah, back to the point. Frankly, I just think Kashtira made that card excessively more broken, which is why it got banned. If Kashtira never existed, it would probably still be a decent-ish rank 7. Kind of upsetting that I never got to play around with it, now that I've got to Kashtira. But oh well, I can completely agree that Mind Hacker needed to go. It was too broken. 3. Thoughts on Baguska. I swear not every card on here is a number. Well, considering from my screen I can see the remainder of the questions, I do know that each one isn't... I know it's not entirely numbers, but I understand your point. So my thoughts on Baguska, I don't really have a strong opinion towards Baguska one way or another. It's essentially just a 2-turn... It's basically just a 2-turn stall that requires 2 level 4s to do it. Like, there's other... Like, I suppose it's probably one of the easiest methods that people can use to stall out the game, considering that's how easy rank 4s can go into because of things like Parallel Exceed and just loads of generic level 4s that can be easily spammed out. But for a 2-turn stall, like, I understand like stalling the game out isn't necessarily great, but sometimes you are in that position that you need an ability to stall just to get your players going further along. But personally, Baguska's not a tremendously big deal. There are ways around it, but I agree. But yeah, it can be quite annoying. So, iffy. 4. Thoughts on Duo Dawn King Kali Yuja. Oh, Kali Yuja, I've not... So, when I started seeing DDD starting to appear on, like, online, And because I was still on Pendulum at the time, I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. They're going to drop Caliuga on me, and then I'm just stuck. And then also when people started doing it with rank up magic launch, with the PK rank up, and just doing it on your turn to negate all of your effects, pretty annoying. So when people abuse it for things like with the rank up, that's just awful. If they're just generically playing it in Triple D, in DDs, so lock out your opponent's effects and nuke their back row, it's not as bad. But overall, it's a very powerful and very oppressive card if used correctly. Though I will admit, I've had a match on Dev Pro from back in the day where I really made a fool out of Caliuga because, well, it's not exactly I made a fool of it. My opponent didn't read. So they dropped Caliuga against me, negated my field, activated its effect, attached one to nuke my scales. My next turn, I draw. I top decked into Pen Call, activated Pen Call, sacked a card, searched my scales, set my scales, then my opponent decides to activate Caliuga to nuke my scales. See, this is why I question why Yu-Gi-Oh! Players don't read, because if he read, he would have read the part on Pendulum Call that says Magician Pendulums can't be destroyed by card effects. So, from there on it was pretty simple after that. Like, okay, cool, you've attempted to nuke my scales. You failed. Pen 2 level 4s. Make Dark Rebellion. Rob your attack. Punch. Yeah, it was pretty fun to do against that. 5. Thoughts on Hope Harbinger? Hope Harbinger is probably one of the most irritating spell negates I've had to deal with. I mean, it's one thing to negate and destroy my spell. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because in the basics of how my Endymion works, I can still take advantage of the spells in my grave because of Selene. However, Harbinger, if it negates and attaches it, then I don't get it back. Then I can't take advantage of it, which is really annoying. And Harbinger also... And every time I go up against Harbinger, I always forget about its secondary effect that it can of what it actually does when it detaches materials, which is it can redirect an attack towards it. I always forget about that. I'm just so used to people only using it for the spell negate, I forget that it's got that other effect, which makes it so annoying and why I really don't like it as an Xyz monster. Though I will admit it does have a pretty nice artwork, but that's literally the only thing I like about it. Its full name is also just too ridiculously long. 6. Thoughts on Narita, the Great Moral Leader? I know you did briefly play it in Pendulum Magician, but again, I'm curious on your thoughts nowadays. Yes, I did play it very briefly back in days when Pendulum Magician first came out, as level 6 spellcasters were pretty easy because we had Oath Dragon Magician. It was okay using it, but for a once per turn spell trap negate, it wasn't hugely great. And frankly, from how I was playing the deck back then, if I was going to make a rank 6, I was just going to summon Utopia Beyond, drop two of my opponent's attacks to 0, and then punch for 3k with Utopia Beyond, and because of my opponent's monster attack is on 0, have Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon Smack for 5k for game, which frankly was just a much better use of my level 6s. But still, Naruto had its moments now and then. But it wasn't, great. It was just an option. 7. Thoughts on Totally Awesome? I really feel this card is very poorly named because he is not awesome. He is by default probably one of the most irritating Xyz monsters ever created. For those who think, oh, but he's difficult to summon because of his restrictions, it's barely restrictions. Sprite have no in-archetype cards that can summon it, but they can very easily just abuse the Nimble engine and just send a Nimble, summon 2, boom. They've got a Totally Awesome now. Not fun, not great for anyone. Sprite is probably also the main reason why I really don't like Totally Awesome. Sprite is one of the only strategies I have seen that can take advantage of one Totally Awesome and use it to negate 3 times in one turn. For those wondering how, simple. Summon totally awesome. Hard XZ summon totally awesome under a sprite elf, so it can't be impermed. So then once you're ready to use it, cool effect, send itself to negate, and then effect to add back one of its materials. Then effective sprite elf, target the totally awesome, bring it back, set up for negate number 2. Once you've done that, negate number 2. Then after that, activate sprite double cross, bring it back again. Negate number 3. 3 negates off of 1 toad. Stupid. Ridiculous. Toad should never have been printed. That's my personal opinion. It's been too oppressive to so many strategies over the years. And finally, question 8. Unrelated question, but when are we going to see Master of Pendulum? I know I already asked this, but I'm curious if this deck actually exists. Well, it is right here. The deck does exist. One of the reasons I haven't been using it is because I've been tweaking around the numbers so consistently, and when I thought I was ready to use it, we basically got the announcement of Age of Overlord, and then I took a look at it and I'm like, I kind of might want to use some of this stuff. And so now part of me is thinking, do I want to wait until Age of Overlord to tweak the deck again? Or do I not? I'm not entirely sure. For the moment, I'm in the position that the deck's pretty much nearly just about where I want it. I just need to locate one card that I want to use in it, but I don't remember where I've put it, so I just need to have a bit of a look around for it. And once that's in there, it's pretty much ready to use. And don't worry, you will get a chance to go against it. Trust me. And on that note, guys, that is all the questions I have today, so thank you very much, DarkPatrician84, very amusing as always. And if anyone else has any questions for me, I do these Q&As every Wednesday, UK time, morning or afternoon, depending on my schedule. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.